In my last video, I showed you a technique to decode one of these Lockwood ASSA ABLOY dial combination locks, and it's pretty reliable. I've got 7 of these and it works on every single one except possibly one of them. And so I'm going to show you an alternative technique to get the first number, because with some locks, if they get a little bit old or worn, finding the first number, the technique I showed you, may not work. In the last video, I showed you that if you lift up the shackle quite hard, it just clicks. It doesn't want to turn out of a gate unless you release tension, turn a little bit, tension it, and it'll just keep on clicking into these gaps or gates. I'm releasing tension to have to move to it. And that's if I'm using lots of tension. If I use no tension, it just turns freely with no bumps and no gates. If I pull just slightly, okay, so it's halfway, it's just a gentle pull. And what I'm going to do, and it's important, this is what I showed you in the last video, to turn counterclockwise, which is the opposite way of what we usually do when we're putting in the correct combination. We're going counterclockwise several times, and see how it just keeps turning and it doesn't stop. There's no bumps. It means I'm not pulling up enough, so I'm going to pull up just a little bit more. And not enough, I'm going to pull up more. Okay, now it's stopped on 16. And I might be able to get past 16 if I release tension. So I release tension a little bit, get past and put that tension on again, turn it around, and it stops on 16 again. So with this lock, I know that I add 15 onto that 16 to get 31 as our first number, and that's what I showed you in the last video. Now, with some locks, it doesn't work, and what can you do? One technique you can do is to not only lift up but sort of pull back as well. So if I'm going to lift up and pull back, I'm going to turn around, and I can feel it stopping on. I can feel a bump on 16. If I pull harder, it would stop on 16. So here it makes the bump stick out a little bit more. And if you're feeling multiple bumps, one trick you can do is that if you turning it around, feel the bump, turn it right round the other way, clockwise, past that 16, and then keeping exactly the same tension, and then around again counterclockwise, and I feel nothing. What that tells me is that it's confirmation that it's the bump that I'm after. If I turn it this way, I get that bump where it will stop. If I turn it this way around past that 16 and I'm going like this, no bump, no stuck point. But if I turn it right round, I'm getting that stuck point. Okay, so that is confirmation that that is the right number. Now, with some locks, as I say, they might be worn, or they might be just a little bit different. And I'm only talking about these Lockwood ASSA ABLOYs. Even if I pull up, turn it several times counterclockwise, pull up and back, sort of feeling something on 30, but I'm sort of feeling something on 35. Sort of feeling something around there. I'm feeling a few bumps. So ideally, and I felt nothing on 30 that time. So ideally, I want to feel one bump. So if I reduce the tension just a little bit, I'm not feeling anything. I increase the tension a little bit, just a little bit, and try and pull back. Keep turning. And I'm feeling. Then I go back to feeling multiple bumps. I felt one about 13, one about 18, and another one here, and I can't reliably just get one bump. And so what can you do? An alternative way to get the first number. Getting the third number that I showed you in the last video is easy, and it's the most reliable way, it's the most reliable method to when decoding one of these locks. But to get the first number, it can be tricky. So if it's not playing ball, your lock's not playing ball, what you can do is this. We'll start pulling up a little bit harder. Okay, I've got it clicked on the gate. It won't come out unless I release tension. I'm going to release tension a little bit, just enough, so I can turn the shackle. And as soon as it turns the shackle, it's in between the gates. I'm tightening up tension again, so that it's quite tight, quite hard tension. Not really hard, just quite hard. And I'm carrying on turning counterclockwise, and it goes click into the next gate. That gate has good movement. I can't get out of it, so I release tension a little bit. There, it moved a little bit, and I increase the tension back to hard again, and turning, and it goes click, and it's in the gate. And I keep on doing the same, testing between the gates and testing the gates with tension. I keep going around. I've got good at being able to do this. That one felt a bit strange, but I'm looking for a stuck point. And there, I've just got a stuck point there. I'm in a gate, but when I let go of tension and just move it slightly and put hard tension again, it didn't want to move. It moved that time, but if I go right round and show you what I mean. Okay, I'm in the gate. If I put down tension slightly so that I can move it, it sort of like gets into a little stuck point where it jumps out of the gate, but it doesn't want to move. And what can further confirm this to me, that it's 30 that I'm after, is if I'm not going to turn it all the way around because I've got quite hard tension, I'll just be stuck all the time. What I can do is let go of tension a bit, turn it past 30 and back a bit. I'm going to put, in the gate and try and do the same thing again, and I don't get it. I get nothing. It just goes in between the gates again like normal, right? Just like normal. And what that means is that it's confirmation that 30 is the number I'm after to try and add 15. Because 30 plus 15 will be our first number. I'm going to just do that again. So if I'm always turning counterclockwise, sometimes I have to turn several times counterclockwise to feel it. So this is in a gate, and this is outside the gate, and I've got tight tension, and in the gate still tight tension, just releasing the tension a little bit to move out of the gate, and it's stuck. If I release the tension to get out of that stuck point, and then I'm into the next gate, if I go backwards to the previous gate, and I'm keeping tight tension, I'm trying to do the same thing and release the tension off a little bit to get out of that gate, no stuck point. So it's only when I'm turning counterclockwise. If I go back a bit and then forward, I don't feel it. And if you'd like to know the reasons why, you can see the video I did a couple of videos ago when I opened up one of these locks, and you can see why this method works. But anyway, 30 is the stuck point, and so what I do is I add 15 onto 30, which is 5, and I know 5 is our first number. So if I know 5 is the first number, then I can proceed and decode this lock. Now, as I said, I decoded this one out of the packet to prove that the method works and it's not just me being biased. And I've got 7 of these locks already, and I didn't want to buy another one. So I'm just going to explain how this technique works for this one. If we said 5 is our first number, to dial in our correct combination, we turn several times to the right, several full turns, and we'll stop at 5, and we carry on with our, we need to find the second and third number. How do you find the third number? What I do is, and you don't need to turn several times to the right for this or anything, I'm just going to start around 0. And I showed you this in the last video. I'm just going to repeat it here. I'm going to tighten up tension in one of these gates. And the more I tighten, the tighter it is to move. It's got quite a bit of resistance. It's quite tough. Let go of tension and move it slightly. Increase tension and it'll click into the next gate. And if I tighten up tension even more, it's really tough to turn. So I know that this is, all the tight ones are not our third number. Tight, 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 tight. Okay, that's loose there. Between 31 and 32. Between 32 and 33. And it's so, I'm really putting on quite a bit of tension here, and it's just so loose. I can even move it with one finger, it's just so loose. And you'll find that's the only spot of these 12 gates around the dial that's like this. So I know that's our third number. And let's call that about 22. So I know that the first number is 5, the third number is 32. We don't know our second number. So, as I say, turn it several times to the right when we enter in the correct combination, and we stop at 5, then one full turn to the left, past 5, and we want to try our second number, and then back to 32. We don't know what it is. We're going to try 2 numbers at a time. The second number, the combination won't be 5, 5, because the first 2 aren't allowed to be the same number. So I'm going to be trying 5, 7, 32. So I'm going to carry on going past to 7 and then 32. And it doesn't open. And then I want to go past to 9, 32. And it opens. Okay, I didn't have to try many numbers, but I would have tried every second number, the second number, and always going back to 32. And I know that I wouldn't mess up the wheels by doing that. I know that I could test 7 and then back to 32, then 9 and then back to 32, and then I would have done 11 and back to 32. And I know that I wouldn't need to reset the internal wheels before each attempt. And because I know how these internal wheels work, I know that I wouldn't be misplacing the what I had already done by setting the first wheel that I already set it, that what I'm doing wouldn't be upsetting that. But if that's confusing, and also if you do a mistake, like let's say I meant to go to 9, but I overshot the mark. I went to 10 or 11 or further. If you make a mistake, always, I'll close that up, always several turns to the right and start again where you're left off to. First number we'd established is 5, counterclockwise to 5, going past 5, and then to where you're up to. If we were meant to do 9, but we'd overshot, well, we're not going to overshoot this time, and then back to 32, and we would test each number. We know that this one works. So those are tips for getting into one of these locks. If the last video didn't help, the last video is the best method, and if you haven't watched it, you should watch that one, because that's the best method to get into one of these locks. But if you're having trouble, then there's a few more tips that I gave you to find the first number to be able to get into one of these locks. Thanks.